Winter sure is a magical time of the year. We have that constant wind, the horizontal rain, the complete darkness for 3 months. I said it was magical, I never said it was especially beautiful. We are staying in today. And this year, unlike last year where I did a what's in my bag kind of video, I thought we would do what's my photography favorites of 2023. A completely original idea, of course. So last year I had the opportunity to shoot with LomoGraflok for a couple of weeks. There's a video of it, and if you haven't seen it, it's linked down below. And well, the LomoGraflok, it's an Instax wideback for your 4x5 camera, your large format camera. And to no one's surprise, I enjoy the monochrome version more than the color version of Instax. And it is actually my favorite film stock of last year. There's just something to that very fast fall off into the darkness, that very narrow dynamic range that works really well in black and white. I think it has a lot of character, and interesting character. I might want to shoot a bit more Instax in the future, as I only shot 1 pack and made only 2 images. So we'll see, there might be an Instax camera in the future for me. I do have an honorable mention, and that's Phographer 200. In general, I think Phographer is an underrated company. They are mostly known as this budget-friendly film manufacturer, and that's true, but they are so much more than that. I mean, they do everything. They do film, they do paper, they do chemistry, they do darkroom accessories, and they do bring out new emulsions every now and again. Just last year I did notice there was a Phographer Orthofilm. I haven't seen that before, and I do think it's new. But my favorite is Phographer 200. It's my go-to film for my everyday 35mm camera. And it's slightly different than its siblings, the 100 and the 400 version, because it's kind of T-grain mixed with classic grain. It's weird, but it gives the film a lot of characters, and I've noticed I can manhandle the film and still get nice negative that still contains some characters, unlike some other films. HP5. This is the big one, my favorite camera of 2023. And well, it's this one. The Contax G1. I bought it for its looks, and it stayed for its sounds. It is perhaps one of the most beautiful cameras ever made during the 90s. And well, it might be a bit slow, it might be misfocused every now and again, but it do have some of the best glass ever made for a camera. And it makes the best sounds ever. It's like this little tiny robot when you shoot with it. And I kind of like how the viewfinder jumps to compensate for parallax error. I just think it's this marvel of 90s tech, and it brings me back to a time when tech was cool and exciting. That might just be a bit of nostalgia talking. But I think it's a really cool camera. I'm really happy with it. Might not be for everyone, but that's my favorite camera of 2023. So Instagram might be a dying platform, and it's not as fun as it used to be, but it is still one of the few places where you can still find new and exciting photographers. One of those guys is David Grell. He's quite an accomplished photographer here in Sweden. And he does this kind of photo walk, street photography kind of thing. I especially like his Sweden series, where he captures Sweden and all its nuances. Both the super urban, like Stockholm environments, with everyday life images, and these quite nostalgic small town photographs. It's just interesting, and it's done really well. It's the kind of photography that when I try to do it, just boring, but when he does it, it's interesting and something else. So I highly recommend his Instagram account and him as a photographer. Another photographer I would like to mention that I kind of discovered the last year, that's Thomas Strutt. I'm quite a big fan of that Düsseldorf style of photography, perhaps most popularized by Gursky. But hailing from the same school and the same general area is Thomas Strutt. And well, he's perhaps most famous for his series of images of museum visitors, where he photographed the visitors instead of the art. Quite interesting in itself. I would like to highlight his industrial series, which I find quite interesting, where he photographed industrial and science equipment. He's just able to find shape and pattern and life among these quite cold and sterile equipment. It's really a reminiscence of the original Düsseldorf style made famous by the Becher couple. So last year I bought quite a lot of books about like photo technique and darkroom technique from before the digital revolution. It was quite nice to have those books because a lot of the tips and tricks and the techniques are quite hard to find online, but having this as reference literature is just great. But they aren't perhaps the most inspiring books. For that I'm instead going to recommend a magazine, and it's this one. It's the Silver Grain Classic. I find this an excellent magazine. It's focused on like analog photography, but that doesn't really matter because there's a lot of articles about photography in general, both like composition, that sort of thing, and just like nice photo projects and that sort of thing. Kind of on the expensive side, I think they cost like 20 euros in the EU, but a really nice magazine that I find quite inspiring. This issue is actually from the winter 2022, but I got it in early 2023, so it qualifies in this category. One channel I discovered last year is the one from Louisiana Art Museum. If you don't know about it, Louisiana is a famous art museum, perhaps the most famous one in Northern Europe. It's in Denmark, so it's fairly close to where I live, so I try and visit it once a year or so. And they have a YouTube channel where they do like kind of interview style videos, about 20 to 30 minutes long, with different artists, not just photographers. And it's always nice to have a small little insight how other artists go about their things. It's truly inspiring, it's well produced and quite interesting, so I do recommend the channel. I would also like to mention Ben Horn. He's not new and I've been following that channel for years now. He's perhaps the OG of large format photography here on YouTube, and perhaps one of the best large format photographers. I did watching one of his recent videos, and apparently he's been doing his science videos for 15 years now, his photojournals. And he is kind of a different breed. He doesn't play the algorithm, he doesn't do ads, he's quite calm. It's a different kind and a different feel to his videos. It's more photojournals than vlogs or YouTube. I have the utmost respect for him and his YouTube channel, so I thought I would mention it in this little video of mine as well. And my favorite non-camera gear, that's this one. This is a spot meter, nothing fancy in itself. It's a Minolta spot meter M, and it's replacing my old Pentax spot meter. It does the exact same thing, but it's a bit faster. And I bought it just because it's slightly cheaper than the very popular Pentax meter. But this has a couple of features I really liked, and it's kind of revolutionized my way of metering scene. It has these buttons for highlight, shadow and average metering, and I keep using them constantly. Instead of doing this zone system, I'm just doing highlight and shadow metering from here on out, and I'm getting good negatives from that. So quite a nice little bit of kit here. Has a small little downside, kind of a weird scale for your shutter speed that doesn't really match all my lenses, but in general a good spot meter. It's fast, it's light and it works really well. One thing I wish I learned a lot sooner is that some proper outdoor gear actually makes landscape photography a lot more fun and easy to do. And on that theme, I actually bought a couple of new boots this year, or last year. It's an age-old tradition here in Sweden to rubberize boots, and apparently someone across the pond had the same idea and created the Bean boot from LL Bean. It's apparently quite a classic American brand, and I bought them to use as an everyday boot here in the winter time. We usually have around 0 degrees and it's mostly rain and not snow, so they are perfect for that sort of climate. But I did notice they work quite well for the local woodlands as well. And they have one key benefit compared to my proper hiking boots, my Lundhags, and that's I can actually drive in these boots. So they turned out to be quite a useful pickup for my landscape photography, in the local woodlands. I do have one New Year resolution, and that is to stop buying new cameras. I have enough. I have all the cameras I would ever need. We'll see how that goes. Besides that, my goal for this year is to take more images and better images. And until next time, do take care and bye.